Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of You're Not Ready for This. My name's Kevin. I'm here with my good friend Alan. Alan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, man. And how about you?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. So I think today we're gonna do a little bit of talking about video game difficulty. So hopefully we get some interest in that because I know it's kind of a hot topic these days with a lot of the stuff, a lot of the games that have been coming out. But before we get to that, I wanted to see what you've been up to lately. How are things going?
Everything good on my part. I finally got myself around to see the Dragon Ball superhero movie.
I heard through a grapevine that you went to go see that last weekend. I was kind of curious on your thoughts.
To be honest with you, if I were to rank it among the Dragon Ball Super movies that we've seen so far, I would say definitely Super Broly is my favorite from the four that have been released. I like this one pretty much after that one, and then the other two like Resurrection F and Battle of the Gods. On superhero itself, I would say there were things that may have been unnecessary, but it felt like a very long episode of Dragon Ball with a few things that are like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And you know me, and I don't know if while you saw it, you kind of, oh, this is what Alan was saying about some characters.
Maybe, and I liked it and I didn't like it at the same time. You could probably guess some of my
Gripes.
gripes. Yes, gripes with the movie, but yeah, no, I definitely agree from your standpoint as far as having some of the focus be on some of the other characters in the Dragon Ball universe, and it's not just Goku and Vegeta. And it was really awesome to see Piccolo shine because we really haven't seen Piccolo do much of anything other than be a flat out side character for quite a long time in the Dragon Ball in Dragon Ball series. He played a pretty decent part towards the end of Super during the Tournament of Power, but
I
um,
guess if we delve a bit deeper, and sorry to interrupt you,
no.
spoiler warning, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be some spoilers on this one because now this is not a review of the movie. This is just us kind of going back and forth about it. So maybe we'll do a review on it at some point in time. But yeah, it was definitely a fun and enjoyable movie. I from a Dragon Ball standpoint, I loved it. It was fun. I definitely enjoyed watching it. I just I don't know. I guess I have no problem
what were you?
with
What were your expectations? To be honest.
I don't know. Well, I knew going in that Goku and Vegeta were not going to play a big part in the movie, so I wasn't surprised at them being kind of tossed aside. So obviously from the trailers you kind of got the sense that Piccolo and Gohan were the main character. So I think it met my expectations. I wasn't surprised by anything. Um, I was probably more disappointed in certain things.
I can see those things, and maybe the same things that I myself have issue with the movie. But again, it's a Toriyama production to some extent, so you cannot delve too deep into the plot lines or like the logic of some things happening.
Yeah,
It's Dragon Ball. It's for fun and having some battles, whether they wanted to recapture some nostalgia, bringing some topics to the table. I guess they wanted to chime on that, but you could say the same about basically every plot arc that they do on Dragon Ball. So
yeah, you definitely can, and I know Dragon Ball has become, or at least probably more so recently than it has been, of characters do with their transformations and whatnot. I don't know. I didn't feel that the let me put it this way. I didn't feel that the character transformations in this movie were earned.
I will say one kind of a spoiler at this point. One
Uh
I
oh.
didn't agree with. The other, for me, it was even logical that it happened. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've been rather vague here on the conversation, but I guess if we do a full review of the movie, we can kind of delve a bit deeper.
Let's do that. Let's do a full review where we could talk about this in more detail instead of doing it now, because I have a feeling that if we start going into more detail, we'll never get to our actual topic, which people are probably like, when are they going to get to our to talk about the
No,
difficulty?
or maybe are people that actually talk about the movie. I don't care about video games.
Or they might, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So, so,
But
so you talk about video games being difficult. What do you want to approach in that regard?
well, I mean, I'd like to maybe talk about a couple different things when it comes to that nature. And I think one of the main reasons that we're going to be talking about this topic is the not the advent of the From Software games, but probably the popularity that they've gained over recent years, and specifically Elden Ring. Just most recently from when that came out, and how um, I was going to say obnoxiously popular, but obnoxiously is a wrong word. But how it just it's very very popular right now, and so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that as far as the difficulty goes, and then I'd like to see how we can maybe compare it to some other games that were more difficult, and then also compare it to like our older arcade games and older games from even regular Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and how those games were difficult in comparison as well.
Okay, and I guess the premise would be what is a difficult game, and it sounds like we're dissecting something. But what is a difficult game for you?
You know, I find a game. I like games that are difficult. I don't particularly care for just breezing through a game, but I don't like to be punished in games either. From my standpoint, I don't particularly care for when a game becomes to the point of I feel like it's a chore. It's work for me to do. I have to deal with enough of that in a regular everyday job. So when I play a video game, usually try to enjoy myself as much as possible, and I don't like it when it feels like a chore. Now, if I want to talk about From Software games specifically, I think my caveat with those games, and my experience with them is limited. I played Bloodborne, and I played the remake of Demon Souls on PlayStation 5. And when I say play, I mean I never finished. Um,
The question is, did you start?
I did start. I did start. So yes, I can't. I wouldn't be able to.
What's the playtime?
I think my playtime in Bloodborne was a lot longer than it was in Demon Souls, because Bloodborne was my first kind of experience with their games, because I never played any of them before. So I didn't get it, and I probably still don't actually get it. My problem with the game was having to continuously redo the same things over and over and over again. Now I know in a normal, quote unquote, normal game, or even difficult games, there's maybe a boss battle or some difficult enemies that you might have to go face over and over again to try to learn patterns, see their weak spots, and get better at playing against them. the The thing is, with those games, typically you can restart and go right where you left off, and start playing against them. In Bloodborne, and what I found with Demon Souls is I could go through the whole stage and then die at the end, and now I have to go through the whole stage again. That's the aspect I don't care for.
That's what we call the walk of shame.
Yes, yes, I was walking shamefully. So yeah, and to me now it starts to feel like a chore, or it's almost nerve wracking, because now it's like, oh crap, I'm getting towards the end. I'm having a really good run, and I got to be real extra careful because if I lose this run, I got to do this crap all over again, and I lose enjoyment of the game when it's like that. Now, I understand though from your aspect that you look at it in a little bit of a different light or a different experience, right?
So, not to dial it back too much, but yes, to answer your question, but to kind of set up the theme, I was in the exact same boat as you are feeling about. If we're talking specifically about From Software games that nowadays have become, in a positive and negative way, the terminology that people use commonly, like Soulsborne, as a
Yes.
term for difficulty or as even a game genre out of itself.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's become more of a genre. There's actually another name for it, and I can't think of it off the top of my head.
well, Souls like.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
because Soulsborne came after Bloodborne because they wanted to include Souls and Bloodborne. But yeah, but did you go to Steam or any of these other sites to check games and you type like Souls like or Soulsborne and you're gonna find other entries that are trying to copy the formula that they have done for their games. And when I say that they're used in a positive and negative way as far as describing games and defining a genre out of itself, is that you can read an article by someone and someone might use it as a derogatory term. You can, for example, see reviews on more recent releases of tough games, say something like Cuphead. A lot of people say that that game, I haven't played it myself, I've only seen other people play it, but that is a rather difficult platformer to this scroller kind of a deal in a way that's kind of akin to Contra back in the day. That you got hit, that's it. You gotta start over and
yeah.
do the level again. So as far as translating that to how I got into enjoying games like Elden Ring, Sekiro, that is the other one that I've been playing recently. To be quite honest with you, it's just how can I put it the you establishing the punishment, but the reward formula
Hmm.
that are established in those games when you're stuck doing a level or a boss over and over. Like it's like when people are telling you when you go to the beach or a river and you get caught in like a strong current, like don't fight against it, like flow with it. Quite
Right.
literally, it sounds like very zen right now, like what I'm saying, but
It is.
you quite literally go in a zen mode with these games when you're actually invested with them. Because
Okay.
if you try to brute force your way through, the game is gonna brute force back at you. So you gotta learn obviously the mechanics, engage with them in a manner that for me, you're engaged with the experience, not only the sense of discovery for the environment that they're presenting to you, but also what do you do in certain prospect of you're met up with this type of enemy. What do you do? Do you dodge and parry, or do you use like your extra tools, or you use a particular set of weapons? Because it's something those games give you are options. Like even though they're a set of core mechanics, they also have the philosophy that there are multiple ways to tackle the same problem. And when you mix that with your own playstyle, those games people say they're very punishing, or I cannot use my sword and board, my shield and my sword to do everything. Well, it's not that you cannot do it with everything. Like you gotta explore and see what options the game give you. Like there are ways for you to cheese every encounter, every boss, every mob in the game, but obviously that comes with perseverance. That's another thing that is also proposed by these games. Like, if you don't persevere and don't learn the flow of the game, obviously you might find it as a chore. When I find the massive payoff of these games that recently I bested up quite a few hundred hours is the you've been like, oh man, I'm stuck in this battle. and you being able to reach a certain point, and it becomes like a dance. You gotta find the rhythm and go with the rhythm, and when you finally complete and finish the dance, you're like, man, I'm very good at dancing.
Are you basically just trying to tell me to get good?
I didn't want to, but as far as recommendations for playing games such as these, it's basically the same with every other game. You could say the same for
It is.
you could say the same for God of War. You could say the same for Ninja Gaiden. You could say the same for Rock Band or any other game that
True.
not
True.
necessarily is like a platformer. Halo. Say that you're playing Halo 2 on the most difficult setting with all the skulls, and I'm just alluding to that. But recently, Moist Critical, those that you don't know, is a Twitch streamer, made like a challenge that he was willing to pay. I believe initially was like $10,000, but then he upped the ante. I don't know if it ended up being like $20,000 to whoever completed Halo 2 on the most difficult settings with, I believe, 15 or 16. I'm not quite familiar with the game. Of the skulls that make the game even harder.
Right.
And the person that did it not only got a payoff of doing completing the game on the hardest difficulty, he also got a monetary remuneration. But that's aside the point. That's obviously a material satisfaction. But imagine each time that you completed one of those games or did one of those encounters, talking back to FromSoft, you got that sort of a reward.
No, it totally makes sense. I guess it's weird for me being as competitive as I am that it doesn't attract me. um, because for whatever reason, well, no, I mean, I mean, you mentioned God of War. There's some really tough battles in God of War, especially the newest one or the one from 2018. The Valkyrie fights were extremely difficult and whatnot. But at least with those, it's you can continue, you can battle and battle against them, and you don't have to go through the entire stage to get up to that just to try that fight again. So to me, it's more alluring, I guess.
I would definitely recommend if that's because the two titles that you mentioned, I only played Demon Souls on PS3 close to when it was released.
Yeah,
And after I played that, I was of the same mindset because I came from playing like Final Fantasy X, Skyrim, and all these other games that are easier or are more straightforward, and you coming with the mindset of the, like Devil May Cry, like I'm gonna brute force my way through,
yeah.
or getting cheesed by a skeleton near a set of ladders and you're thrown into the abyss and you die. Like the crushing sensation that you lose everything in everything in those games is like your currency to be able to progress and level up and do everything. Definitely, it's demoralizing, but it's something that you get used to as you keep playing as any other mechanic in any other game.
Yeah,
So it's definitely different to the experience that you come from, say, God of War and the playing like God of War 3, like you're collecting the red orbs, and you with that you buy your upgrade for your weapons or your spells and all that, and they can kill you 1,000 times. You're not gonna lose that, and you're little by little you keep farming and kind of get to the point that you buy the next upgrade, and that's just what you needed mechanically inside the game to be able to push forward. But in this game, it's your skill that you level up as you are playing them. No matter how many times they kill you, mechanically, they're visually you see your currency that is diminishing, but you're not seeing your skill level that is going up and leveling up.
it's definitely a different way of looking at it. It does make sense. I I I'm not the type of person to say, oh, the From Software games they suck or they're terrible
Oh,
games
there are
or
people that say that out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I no, and that's not me because I think they're excellent games. I just don't think that they're for me. I don't particularly enjoy playing them. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to click with me one time. It's just basically giving it another chance. I mean, I gave it a chance with Bloodborne. One of the biggest issues with Bloodborne, and I know they vastly improved it, but I got Bloodborne when it first came out, and it had a not one of the main issues was loading time upon death. It was very long, and they had to patch it a couple times and they supposedly improved it quite a bit. But so not only was it punishing, it was difficult, but then you had to wait a long time just to get back to starting to play again. That got frustrating. A lot of other people expressed their frustration with that as well. So that didn't help. But I never did finish Bloodborne. I don't even. I think I beat the first one or two bosses, and that was probably it. And I know that there's shortcuts and there's things that you can find to get to back to the spots you were quicker. But again, just like you said, is more of a exploration and trying to find those, and that's a part of the aspect as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't too good at finding in Bloodborne, anyways. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, I can definitely relate to the rewarding aspect. There's plenty of times where it's one of those bosses that you're fighting and it's tough, and you fight them over and over again. Finally, when you beat that boss, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it, but you know what? I think I probably would have enjoyed those From Software games a lot more when I was younger than I do now. Um,
Question for you.
okay.
For you, what's a good difficult game?
my my One of my favorite games of all time was extremely difficult, and that was Devil May Cry 3.
Okay, okay.
And I got my ass kicked in that game, hardcore, especially right in the beginning. They threw it at you pretty hard, but and I like I said, I enjoyed playing and getting better and whatnot, but it was different than a From Software game, right? So
What's different? The crushing sensation that you lost your currency, or
yeah, I think so. That basically there's having the checkpoints and being able to pick up, pretty close to where you just left off, and not losing all your stuff. So you're basically retrying it exactly the same as you were when the last time you got killed. So, but the game was definitely hard. I know that game was in the United States was actually on normal was the hard difficulty in Japan. So now maybe I would think about it differently if I played it now as opposed to when I played it, years ago. But I maybe I think it might just be the fact of I don't have as much patience when it comes to playing games as I used to. Probably because I don't have as much time
mm-hmm.
as I used to. I could sit down and play and devote quite a bit of time, and now unfortunately that time goes towards work or whatever, and then when I sit down, finally get a chance to sit down and play, I want to enjoy myself and not feel like I'm getting punished.
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
if you have the correlation and mindset tied to one thing to the other, like difficult punishing, time valuable, not invest time. Obviously, the equation resolves by itself, so you don't have to make any calculation. And obviously, you're not gonna approach any of those games. But let's kind of get front of out of the conversation for a second and
okay.
kind of
Yeah.
explore uh, at the difficulty like tenants in a way. Like you just mentioned Devil May Cry 3, for example.
Yeah.
Uh, was it established or not from the beginning? What is that you're tackling, or when you're fighting a boss, what is the mechanics of what you're dealing with?
I'm not sure. You rephrase the question for
Okay,
me.
there when you all rules, all games got like core rules. You're playing an RPG that is turn
Uh huh.
based. You gotta wait for the opponent to go, and then it's your turn, and then goes the opponent,
Yep.
and then it's your turn. When you're playing an action RPG, like say Diablo or any of those right now, like obviously you got resources that you gotta manage, and depending on the resources that you expend, you deal more damage. Like you got your resource generators or your resource spenders, and you see the spenders either have a cooldown or just spend much resource but also deal more damage. And as you progress on difficulty, you take more damage, and the enemies have more health. when you're playing, say, God of War in the hardest difficulty. It comes to the point that it's not that mechanically it's difficult, but for example, the enemies have more health and so on and so forth, and you take more damage.
Yeah, I think that's more the case on a Devil May Cry 3 standpoint, where the diff the difficult the harder the difficulty, the more spongy, I guess you could say, that the enemies are, and probably the more damage that they dish out. I don't know that it really dramatically changes as far as strategic.
So,
It's
so,
just
so on that regard, is really inflating the numbers difficulty out of itself, or it's just them faking the difficulty on those games? And
it,
and
it's
I know I'm being the devil's advocate here, but you know,
No, and it's probably more on the faking side. I mean, if you even want to talk about Street Fighter, it's like Street Fighter 2, the difficulty level as it went up, they had AI, or the computer controlled characters were basically taking less damage and dishing out more damage, which is totally incorrect in the way a fighting game should be made to be more difficult. The opponent should be better, not just stronger, in stats. Because if I'm playing against another human, their stats are not, unless you want to, they do have
skill,
handicaps.
skill
It should,
caps.
yeah, they have handicaps where you can make your character stronger. But that aside, that. So to me, that's yeah, you're right. It's artificially making it more difficult, just because, you know, and that's probably why I typically always play games on normal difficulty. I play it on the default difficulty. I don't like easy mode, but I don't necessarily want to go up to hard mode, just because I want to play it in the way that it was designed to be played, and not artificially made harder just because. Okay, it's still exactly the same game, but now this guy dishes out twice as much damage, for literally no reason at all. So
So you find more enjoyment on playing on the established difficulty than on easy difficulty? Why wouldn't you play it on?
yes.
Why wouldn't you play it on easy?
Again, I think for the same reason, it wasn't meant to be played on that mode. That mode was the opposite of the harder difficulty. Now your opponents are taking more damage than they normally would, and dishing out less damage than they normally would. So, but again, who's to say what damage level they should or shouldn't be, dishing out? So you can really only go. You can really only go according to what the developers have it set for, and that's kind of the way I look at it.
Mm. I mean, I myself don't play games on easy. Most likely, the first playthrough I would do normal as well. If it's a game that I really, really, really like a lot, obviously I would play on the harder difficulty, because it depending on the difficulty. If it's just the sort of difficulty that they inflate the numbers, I dislike that.
Yep.
I like the difficulty where you introduce either other elements that you gotta be watching for, or like new enemies, for example, or density, or I really don't see, for example, I'm trying to remember a game that I played on the harder difficulty. Let's go way back. Devil May Cry 1.
Okay.
Like, I played that game. I was like, oh man, this is really awesome. Let's play on the harder difficulty. And I was obviously getting trashed by the shadow enemies on that game. Or like the
Yeah.
cat-like enemies that jump all the over the place and deal tons of damage. And kind of going through the game, everything was harder out of itself, but I was persevering and pushing through, and finally made it to Mundus, and played the last stage and defeated the guy. And I'm like, man, that was something. Like that feeling of achievement after doing
Sure.
it. Would I do it
Sure.
again? No, because one, obviously, I tried playing Devil May Cry 1 recently, and me just trying to get used to the holding the button to fire your guns was like
Yeah.
getting used to the mechanics, and the camera angles are a bit tough in some parts, and It's more so the game getting dated in comparison to playing Devil May Cry
Sure.
4 or Devil May Cry 5 that you have more freedom or more options. But that would be being unjust. It's just kind of the mindset going back to retro games unless you really, really, really love it, the game.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I don't like the difficulty when it's inflated by numbers, like say God of War, the most recent one. That is the only critique that most people I can see share online, like playing on the hardest difficulty. Just that you gotta not only play very, you could say strategically, as in not getting hit, but you
Yep.
gotta repeat the same motions like for the initial mobs that you find. You gotta do like the same cycle, like attack, or dodge back, or parry, or and do the same cycle over and over. Like if you were playing a boss, but it's just a normal mob that you're encountering yourself with,
Sure. Yeah.
and that doesn't make sense when you get to a boss and you feel a sense of relief, like, oh, finally, I'm not playing against five mobs that I gotta doing the same repetition over and over, and you're kind of just inflating the playing time without introducing something new mechanically that you gotta deal with. Now, going back to From Software, and I guess I can speak to that a bit more. Both in Elden Ring and Sekiro that I played, the enemies that you encounter at first are very trivializing. Like you can just dispatch them very easily. Like you learning obviously the game mechanics and all that, and the game obviously doesn't have a difficulty slider because it's just one difficulty from the start. Now,
Right. Right. The whole game, and I was gonna bring up a point, not to cut you off, but it's hard. I think it would be hard for the developers to implement a different way of doing a difficulty ramp up without having to basically redesign the game for a specific difficulty level.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
but
So
the design with this game is like the same guys that you can trash in one or two hits. Later on, you encounter them again, and it's like, oh, you gotta take into consideration the same five, like you encounter the same type of enemy, but instead of one, you find five, and
right.
you're thinking, I can take one of these. What does five make? And you really fast realize that you get overwhelmed and you get trashed, and it's like, oh, so numbers matters as if you were actually fighting on the street, like you're fighting multiple people by yourself. You're not coming out of that without a scratch or winning at all, kind of a deal.
Sure. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So when you start implementing those and new enemies, and those enemies do like different attacks or different, you're like, okay, so you the approach that you take to it is not that the game itself, like you encounter the same mob and then that mob does like 1,000 more damage, okay, or it takes more hits, oh, okay. Like it's a very fine balance, at least in the case of Sekiro. That I gotta say, the combat out of itself is a beauty. Like you say, by what you can do with only a katana versus other games that you got like more weapon options, but you got more freedom. What you can do with just one katana compared to other games that give you like a spear, a katana, or magic. One the diversity that they give you in other games with multiple weapons, they give you just here with one weapon, for example.
Now, how is the controls in Sekiro in comparison to some of the other games? I think part of my mistake of playing both the way I was playing both Bloodborne and Demon Souls was I kind of approached them as a action type or Devil May Cry ish, I guess, type scenario. And the controls, I don't want to say the controls were bad, but the controls were not
You can you cannot
at that same
you cannot spam. There are definitely a queue
right.
of like if you attack three times and you realize after you press the button three times that you only wanted to attack two, the game is gonna attack three times. So if the you get punished for spamming, like you would do in a fighting game, that you're spamming the punch
Yeah, and
button.
And that makes sense, but and I agree, and yeah, and spamming is probably easy to do in those those hyper action type games, especially because you're gonna probably slap the same button combinations over and over again if you hit a combo you like, but more on the aspect of like response time, tightness.
Oh,
Uh,
it's tight if you don't spam.
okay,
Like
you have to actually slow yourself down a little bit to.
you gotta be in control of yourself when you're playing those games. If you panic roll, you say panic roll is like you see the enemy that is clearly gonna make a move and you start spamming your roll that usually your roll or your dodge or whatever is what gives you like the window of being able to ignore damage while you're doing the motion or the animation. Like your defense against like super hard hitting attacks. When you realize that you gotta really be watching your enemy, you start rolling like one roll after the other. Most likely the enemy is gonna hit you because you're not in control of yourself. Like you're panicking.
Sure.
So
Now,
yeah, if you compare it to something like Demi McCry, for example, as far as doing badass stuff, you can do badass stuff. Like you can do something akin to you seen all the compilation of people doing like the triple S combo with Nero or Dante or
sure.
Verge or whatever that it looks super fancy. You can do the same here, but also takes practice and you knowing your enemy. Like I'll send you a video. I don't know if you really want to play the game eventually, but I could send you a video of a fight and how it looks like when you're fighting a boss, and you will be the judge of telling me, seeing how people are playing, that it doesn't look as awesome, or well, feeling you will have to play it as just seeing like a combo compilation of Devil May Cry or such.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna look amazing. And I mean, I've seen so many videos of say Devil May Cry of people doing some crazy stuff that even then I pick up the controller and I'm like I have no idea how they did this. So yeah, I definitely would like to check that out.
So why do people even bother in going into the conversation of why talk about difficult games? Like at the end of the day, you enjoy yourself and you consume the media as you want to, and no one but you
That's my
got
stand.
yeah, you yourself are the one declaring your rules. Like question for you, your favorite game from all time, you told me is Last of Us 1 or 2, no?
Yes, yeah,
Have you
yeah, the original.
have you played on the grounded difficulty?
No, I have not played on the grounded difficulty. I've only ever played through. You know what? I do think I played through Last of Us One on hard once. But typically when I replay games, I just replay them on normal.
Okay, so you don't do it on the harder difficulty, even though it's your favorite game, because you don't want to tarnish the image that you got of the game when you're more pressed on how you approach the game.
No, doesn't really have anything to do with the image or the sense of how I remembered playing the game. Or it's not gonna lose enjoyment for me. It's just I don't necessarily feel that I need to make the difficulty harder for me to enjoy or experience it again any better. That makes sense.
It does make sense. Obviously, it's not on easy. That at that point would be basically watching an interactive movie.
More
Um,
or less, yeah. Although there's some games that have story mode where it's pretty easy, but it allows you to experience the story. I think those difficulty levels are great for people who aren't used to playing video games.
so, did you back in the day play like Ghosts and Ghouls, Contra, Galaga, all those
Yeah,
games?
yeah. I knew we were gonna talk about some of the older school games like that, and yeah, I did. But again, most of them I never fin. I don't think I ever finished Ghosts and Goblins. Well, I mean that game was stupid hard. Battletoads was stupid hard. I don't think I've ever finished that. But games like Castlevania and did I finish Contra? I'd have to remember. I mean, there's also those games that were yeah, they're definitely hard, but you ended up finishing it or you powered through them and you got better, blah blah blah. So I mean, I still remember playing the original Street Fighter 2 on Super Nintendo, and I guess my mindset has changed because when I was younger doing that, I would ramp up the difficulty, and I remember finally, I ended up finally beating the computer on the hardest difficulty without taking a hit, and I got the splash screen at the end of like all the characters. That was like the reward for it or something like that. But it was tough, to do that. But I enjoyed it. I wouldn't even think, I wouldn't even dream about doing something like that today.
So it's more so that your enjoyment in media obviously had changed, and that out of itself is what you think makes you approach games in a different aspect. Because you're like telling to yourself, "Ain't nobody got time for that." It's like
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
because I'm gonna be honest with you. When we played the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game
Yeah,
the last
yeah.
week that we bought the Kawabonga collection,
Cowabunga.
we played the co-op online multiplayer. It was fun to play because it was nostalgic. It wasn't fun from the aspect that one we beat it on the first try, but we did it on the first try because I didn't realize I was trying to get into the game that Kevin invited me, and instead of hitting any other button except the start button, when you hit the start button, you add yourself like 2 extra lives. And I was spamming the start button. I'm like, dude, I'm not able to get into the game. When I realized, oh, I press another button and I get into the game and I got like 50 something extra lives or something. And it's like, oh, you can have extra lives. And basically, we were spamming the hell out of it. But
Yeah,
when you look back, that game had the mentality of arcade. That is something that you mentioned quite a few times before. Those games were made difficult just for the fact that they wanted to consume you being in front of the machine, spending coins, and
yep,
oh, I'm almost there. Another quarter, another quarter, another
exactly.
quarter.
Yeah, those games were designed to be difficult or to design to make you. They weren't designed so that you can just kind of walk through and be easy, for it to be easy, or like, oh, I'm gonna beat this game without getting hit or something like that, and it's damn near impossible. They were designed for the kids and whatnot to put in their quarters for their extra lives, because they were getting close to the end of that stage, just like you said. So, and I think a lot of that mentality probably carried over to the home consoles, even though it didn't necessarily need to. Well, and obviously a lot of them were arcade games to start with, so when they get ported over, the difficulty and that those aspects stayed, with them. So they were kind of designed in that fashion to, not force you to pay more, but hey, they're trying to in an arcade game, you're not buying. It's not like you're buying a game today in the store. They're trying to make a profit on the game,
I
so
mean,
they're designed that way.
in the same way, the ones that were later for NES or Super Nintendo that were difficult in that regard, they were made difficult to stretch the playtime. You paid, I don't know what a game was worth back in the day, $60. They were playing,
Sure.
you were paying $50 for a game, and you only got to play 5 hours. And even some newer titles do that, and
Well, yeah.
that always will be something that I have a lot of issue with personally. But besides the point, they were trying to stretch the playtime that you were engaged with a game, and they made it difficult because then you will be playing more the game out of the, oh, I need to try this stage again and again and again and again, like something like I don't know. Well, you told me you see the Angry Video Game Nerd episodes
Yeah,
from time to time.
for sure.
You seen some of the games that he reviewed, some that we played ourselves. How some are just ridiculously difficult, like for example Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah,
Like
Ninja Gaiden.
you're trying to jump from one platform to the other, and it just so happens that an enemy spawns off screen. It hits you, and oh well, I'm still alive, but it hits you, and you fall to a bottomless pit, and
Yeah,
you died, and it's like, huh?
yeah. Oh, and some of that's just just flat out bad game design as well.
I won't argue with that. There are definitely games that are badly designed back then and nowadays as well.
Yeah,
But that itself, when you see people that memorize the stages and know how many tabs they gotta do to be able to get to one point A to point B without getting hit and deleting all the enemies on the way, like, okay, that's someone that really invested a lot of time, like, getting good at the game. And
right.
I don't want to be the one to say that there needs to be games like the Sourceborne, like they say, because they have a core tenant, like the producer Hidetaka Miyazaki. He's made multiple interviews, and the games, when you play them, you think, man, this is so unfair. Like the reason why I didn't play them. But after a while, that you start understanding the definition of what they kind of established themselves, like, oh, there's this boss is fair. Like after it attacks 3 times, there's an opening, and you exploit that opening, and so on and so forth. It's the same for the other games. Like on Contra, for example, you needed to avoid all the bullets and jump around the screen, and then fire at the red shiny thing that was the weak point for the enemy.
Sure.
So I guess the philosophy has evolved to some extent, and instead of talking about the how the game's development is approached, wouldn't you say, and kind of tying the point, that you yourself have gotten older, your tolerance and patience have diminished, and obviously you're busy with other things that take more priority in your mindset? Wouldn't you say that that as a gaming community out of itself has diminished as well? Like why some people don't like playing, the majority of people maybe don't like playing on the most difficult games because they simply don't want to feel themselves as doing a chore.
Yeah, I think that could probably be said for a lot of people, and there's definitely a lot of people that still do enjoy playing the more difficult games, and they enjoy playing the same game on a harder difficulty and things of that nature. So I think, and I think that's one of the great things that they've done now. Obviously, the Souls games excluded, where there's no adjustable difficulty level. But I think that's expected with those. Those are games that you know what to expect going in for the most part. Um, and then opposed to like some of the older games where there was no difficulty level, but they were just punishingly hard. Basically it's either you learn or you give up. So I think the adjustable difficulty level is great because it gets more people to play. Because I know people that wanted to play, some of these games, but their dexterity, or for whatever reason, or their knowledge of playing video games.
Hand-eye coordination sort of a deal.
Exactly, it wasn't up to what the game might be demanding from them, and they can lower it to a difficulty level where it's much easier, and they can still enjoy the game, still enjoy the story, and not have to feel like they are just getting waxed all over the place. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes to just get punished over and over and over again. Eventually, you're gonna stop playing.
I would say maybe I myself recently, this is quite recently, my mindset obviously because I have shifted a bit. I try to get engaged with a few games and have been dissuaded because they feel samey.
Right.
Like open world exploration, done in a certain manner, or the game taking your hand and getting you from one point to the other, like not allowing you the freedom to explore or
Sure.
do something that you want to do. It's also on the opposite end. Like if I'm gonna be told, like the quite literally you're playing with your main character, and your character, oh, I see the weak point, it's that eye on the left, when it's shining red I gotta hit it with my arrow, or it's like, oh, quite literally the character told you what you needed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
and
the
and, and,
the
the, and there's different like in storytelling, like or movies, like show don't tell. I guess that's what it would attest to some of the Soulsborne, that they show you, they don't tell you quite true, or they do tell you, but maybe you gotta get a bit out of your way to engage with, say, talking to an NPC, finding a note, or watching an enemy from afar and studying them. I will bring up to the table and might not be on the same degree, but Monster Hunter, for example.
Okay.
I know it's a title that you haven't engaged a lot with, but on those games, I played Monster Hunter World. They have something called like high ranks, and depending on the ranks, the enemies behave in a different manner, and you gotta observe them. And depending on how you observe them, is how you know how to approach them. And in a certain manner, you might need to retry them a few times to be able to beat them.
Makes sense.
So on that regard, you got different ways to how people have approached like the formula of making something engaging. For me, I don't like the fake difficulty in games when you just number crunching like, oh,
Yeah.
I hit with a bigger stick, you hit me with a bigger stick, you have a bigger health pool, that fake difficulty. Or for example, you're in a racing game and the enemy is always gonna be faster than you, and
Yeah.
is that actually difficult? Or in fighting games, for example, like the computer is input reading your control, and
Yeah. We're doing stuff like walking forward and throwing a sonic boom, which is impossible to do.
I wanted to ask you, talking about entry level and exposing people to other, like why. What's your opinion on like on easy inputs for fighting games, for example?
I don't particularly care for them. I don't use them myself, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing because I, I think it's good for the fact to allow other people to get into playing that game. I always try to look at it as the more people that you can get to play, the more people that can enjoy the game, the better. It also, if you want to play online or you want to play with your friends, it might be able to get people who normally would stay away from those type of games because they don't know how to do those moves now start playing the game because they can now do those moves with the easier input. I also think that you're going to find people that will start using the easy input and then slowly learn how to actually do the moves and then transition over to playing it the quote unquote traditional style. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I really don't.
You know how many years I have like a callus on one of my thumbs by doing all the Choryukens, Hadoukens,
Yeah,
quarter circles, four circles,
yeah,
for all
yeah,
the special moves and whatnot. And you're telling me that that callus doesn't mean anything and now because I just can press forward.
correct. But you know what? And from a competitive aspect, I still don't think that somebody who really is good will have any issues dispatching somebody who's using the easy inputs either. I
The way that they design it, if I'm not mistaken, is that you could go par on par with someone if someone really learns well the game mechanics as
Yeah,
far as like punishing, jumping like with a like a air cancel, like a air punish, or wake up with a dragon punch. Like it's the standard on most fighting games.
yeah,
Uh, what they done mechanically is that usually you do less damage with those sort of
yeah.
inputs than the quote unquote traditional way of fighting on those games.
Right, or you get rewarded by doing the traditional input by giving it a little bit of a damage boost. So yeah, I it makes sense that they make those kind of changes. So you don't necessarily want to punish the person for using, the easy inputs, but I tend to think that you'd probably want to lean more towards rewarding the person for not using them, I guess. But it's a delicate balance, that's for sure. I mean, and if you said, would you look if I lost to somebody using easy inputs and I'm using traditional inputs, am I going to look down on them? Yes, I will.
Well, you will be hitting that rematch button, or sending them a message on the whatever console like, "Hey, you screw up, fight me, fight me."
Yeah, I mean, for real, I'm actually doing the motions, not just easy
So,
inputting. But but,
w- w-
but it still stands that I think it gets more people involved in the game, and I think that's a good thing.
yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the same when you're talking about two individuals, but say that you're fighting in the arcade mode on the computer. Obviously, it's the same. Like it would be more rewarding if you learned the traditional inputs versus doing the easy mode. And I guess that would be aside from the toggle of setting the computer, the CPU difficulty to a higher or lower level. So
Yeah.
that would be another layer. So on that regard, I like how I bring everything back to the same.
Uh-oh. I
You
wanted to ask you one question before you bring
yeah.
it back. Can I? I want to ask your thoughts on something like this. Let's say maybe only in a ranked situation, but let's say if you go online, you can only use the easy inputs up until a certain you get up to a certain level. What do you think about something like that? Where now
Um,
you're at level 10, now you have to use the traditional mode.
the design is flawed by itself. If it was that the case, because think it through. Like you have accustomed your muscle memory to doing things a certain way, so you wouldn't be able to do the normal inputs out of nowhere because you needed to actually put the time to get good to actually do the traditional inputs. But
True.
to comprehend a bit more, I kind of a shot out of the holster kind of a deal.
Well,
But
I just thought of that right now, so I didn't put any
no,
thought into
but
it. So
you were formulating the question as far as you will still be able to play, but only with people on the same rank, and you wouldn't be able to get on a higher rank. Or you mean that the game itself like shuts down the easy input, and then you are throwing to people doing the traditional inputs, and you gotta do traditional inputs. That like
yeah,
which
that's kind of what I was thinking.
Ah, no, no, man, no, no.
No, you're
That's
done.
flawed. That's flawed. That's flawed out
You're
of
done with the
itself.
easy inputs. Now
I
you gotta
would
learn.
no, 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 no. That's flawed out of itself. Like
You're right.
as game design, if we think it through, to a certain extent, if you want to treat it that way, you could set it up as in people playing with easy inputs just get to a certain rank, and if you want to provide the run, that you gotta do the traditional. But that will have to go into you going to the options and you changing the controller input to being classic or easy input kind of a deal.
How?
It would be interesting. I don't know if anyone have done it because I know, for example, Dragon Ball got like the auto combos, or the other DNF Duel got the easy inputs as well.
Yeah.
Persona Royale, I believe it is. Persona battle game got something similar as well.
Now, what about this? While you were trashing my idea,
Man, no, I was really considering it. I'm like,
no, you were
this is flawed. This is flawed. This is flawed.
while you were trashing my idea that I thought of in like 10 seconds. I thought of another idea. What about having, if you want to use easy inputs, you can choose to play against other people with easy inputs or traditional style. But if you play as traditional style, you have to enable a button to allow to play against somebody using the easy inputs. Does that make sense?
I understand what you are
So
establishing. What I don't understand is what's the purpose.
the purpose would be, if I'm playing traditional controls, I don't want to play against anybody else that's using easy inputs. So I'm choosing to only play against other people that are playing with traditional inputs. But if I want to play against people using easy inputs, then I can enable
Oh,
that.
so
Uh,
that would be sort of what I was mentioning. Yeah, you would have like the two modes. Like you wouldn't be able to, instead of not going higher on a rank, but you only play with the people with the
yeah,
controller setup. Kind of what I.
and I was thinking of that as far as like, if you're traditional, you only play against traditional. If you're easy mode, you only play against easy mode. But I still think there should be options to allow if, because if somebody traditional wants, they if they feel that they don't want to play against people using easy mode because that's for scrubs, blah blah blah. Okay, then you don't. They can disable that. But if somebody says, hey, I don't care, I'll play whoever, then let them enable it. And then vice versa for somebody who's playing, the easy mode. They might only want to play against somebody that's using the easy mode as well because they feel that that will be more up to their competition level or their skill level. But maybe they say, hey, I've been doing pretty good. Now I want to open it up to people who are more experienced and playing in a traditional level. So I can enable that as well.
So that would be fine and dandy if the player base was constant over time. You know that the people that return to a game or are the established users of a particular fighting game diminishes over time after its release. So it would be segmenting already a very scarce player base.
So for you, or in your mind, I should say, it should be anybody can play against anybody. Doesn't matter what control set they're using.
Yeah, but I'm not so thinking from the you're a traditional player or you're a newer acquisition to the genre to be able to play fighting games. It's more so, I believe so. From the release, the DNF Duel had, I don't know, in the thousands of players. You check now, maybe it's in the hundreds and
Yeah.
even less. So you doing a setting like that would be segmenting the little player base, and your queue times to be able to play against another would be
Yeah.
way harder.
It's true. I thought maybe by giving the options, it wouldn't segment quite as much. But you're right, and I guess it would be. It's interesting to think about. But so that's two ideas that you trashed.
But man, I'm sorry. I'm used to doing that. I'm used to doing because I'm playing Sekiro. I'm doing the parry
I'm
dead
getting,
blow.
I'm getting souls born by Alan over here.
No,
I'm
but
getting.
no. Sorry. No, I mean,
No, it's all good.
I'm listening to you and considering it, but obviously I'm putting it on the table as far as how they would
No, no, that's
realistically implement it. And I wish that they could do that. No, don't get me wrong. I wish they could do something that you would play with the people because we were playing, for example, we were playing multiversus. You pick up a character that you're learning to play. Usually you would do that on your own against a friend or in practice, but I guess we're stubborn and we're not approaching the game how it's supposed to. So we're picking up a character that is level 1 and we're pair up against people that are level 14 that got more experience with the other characters and we're
yeah.
like getting trash, but obviously it's because we're picking a character that we never played before. Obviously you're going to get trash. So
Yeah.
the matchmaking there is going to pair you up with the people that is available. If they were to pair you up sort of with the people that are within the same level, they have no other way to be able to know, you never played with this character. Obviously, you're going to learn a character against people that are way experienced with another character. Obviously, it's going to be unfair.
So from the standpoint that you're thinking that instead of the other options like the stuff that I was thinking of as far as trying to allow or disallow people to play against certain other players with a different type of control scheme, instead of doing that because that's going to segment, what they really should focus on is better matchmaking so that regardless of the control set that you're using, you're paired up against somebody with as close to the same or similar skill set as you are as you are
That's what all of these games have been trying to do for a while now,
trying to do, right?
and it's very objectively and inside the game it's very hard to
It is because a
sort
lot of
that out.
times they'll base it like you just said, like multiverses. They'll base off like it's the first time I'm using this character, so it's a level 1, and I'm using and base it, and they're gonna match make me with somebody using a character that's level 14. But does that necessarily mean that their 14 is so much better than my level 1, or they just use that character more? You know what I mean? Or are the skill sets actually similar
It's
as
a
far
it's
as
a, it's a
you know
way
what
it's a
it's a
way of
balance.
it's a way of telling, I guess, because if you see someone that has better a lot of time, you can numerically see it in game. But
Yes,
it would
but the amount of times you use a character doesn't necessarily equate to skill set either.
yeah, I mean, wouldn't you say the same with Major League that you play? Like, you're paid up against people that you're trashing and doing like 7 runs before the fifth inning or something like that,
Yes.
versus some other times that you pair against someone, you lose, and you're frustrated. uh,
Yes. They were probably cheating.
um, were they more skillful or were they cheating?
They were cheating. Nobody's more skillful. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So yeah, that what you see there's no way to do that pairing
Yeah,
without.
you're right. You're right. It's very, very difficult, but so yeah. So I was just thinking about that. Anyways, you can back to back to bringing it back around.
I don't know if I can bring it back at this point. But I was thinking of like different difficulty in games, like for example, Rock Band. You played Rock Band, Guitar Hero, or any of those games?
Yeah, yeah. I played quite a bit of Rock Band back in the day. That's for sure.
In what difficulty would you have played one of those?
So it's interesting because on the guitar, I would play the difficulty level. I would play on the normal, where I didn't have to slide my hand. I never could get good at sliding my hand up and down and hitting the correct color. But on the drums, I typically played on expert, which was the actual drum track. Um, and I didn't start off on that expert, and I didn't play the drums prior, but I worked up to it. Also, it was, I don't want to say easier to play. Well, let me put it this way: it was easier for me to play a song that I knew on expert because it was the exact drum track, whereas it would it would be weird playing it on the lower difficulty level because it's either asking you to hit something that's not there, or you're skipping I think you're more or less skipping different you know um,
Notes.
different hits, different notes throughout the song, and you want to hit it to keep up with the song, but you're not supposed to hit it because it's not on the screen, that kind of thing. But don't get
Mm-hmm.
me wrong, it wasn't all songs I couldn't. There was no way in hell all songs I could do on expert. There was only a handful. So, but I tried to play it on a harder difficulty levels. I was also trying to teach myself drums at the time.
And that really
I was better.
got you, and that really got you pumped because
It
you got,
got me excited. Yeah,
because you were not only engaged with the music, you were also engaged with the playing the game
yeah,
to the rhythm that it established. Like the song is this
yeah.
one, and it got that rhythm that you gotta follow.
Right. Whereas like the guitar, the colors there and the strumming is not the same as playing a real guitar. Whereas playing in Rock Band, it was, I won't say it's the same as playing real drums, but it was a hell of a lot closer to playing a real instrument.
Well, it would be something similar. I played more Rock Band than Guitar Hero. Usually it was on my friend's house. They were playing on Xbox, and I remember it was like a Christmas week that I went and visited, and they were playing Rock Band, and I got them a gift, and it was like a an Xbox $50 card gift card,
Okay.
and you know what they used the $50 on? They bought all the songs on the
Songs.
all the songs that we were playing for the whole weekend.
Perfect.
But on the regard difficulty, it was just that there were songs that we always try to play on the more difficult setting because it was more akin to what you were listening to, and
Right.
you seeing the arrangement of the notes on the screen. It definitely felt like you were actually playing a guitar or an instrument. And they even released, I believe, a professional set of drums, well, electrical drums, of course,
Yeah.
and a guitar as well. That I believe, I think there were two set of guitars, if I'm not mistaken. One was the normal buttons, like the color buttons, and the other one was the whole fret had like mini buttons that actually will represent each individual note as if you were holding the chord on the
Oh,
guitar.
that's cool. Yeah.
And I believe they got that guitar, but it broke very fast because the buttons were very sensitive.
Yeah.
But it was a rather interesting exercise, what they were trying to achieve, like to actually teach you how to play music.
Yeah, exactly. Those games were really awesome. It's a shame that they've gone by the wayside now.
A
It's
bit.
also, yeah, it's also a shame that the quality of the instruments that came with the game were usually pretty poor. Like I don't even think my drum set for Rock Band works anymore. If it does, it like half works. It's a shame. They were also it was also really loud. But granted, I also understand that if they wanted to bring it out at a reasonable price, that they can't have uber expensive or high quality instruments as well. So there's a balance there.
I think if you want to get your fix now, you gotta play some of those rhythm games like Muse Dash or Friday Night Funkin' or any of those.
Yeah,
That is like notes on the screen and you hit the control buttons, but it's not like an instrument per se.
honestly, I'd like to at one point. I don't know if I'll ever do it or not, but get like a little electronic drum set and get the adapter and fire it up with Rock Band, again, and do it that way on a nice quality electronic drum set, and then playing Rock Band. Sounds like it would be pretty fun, but it costs money.
Yeah. The thing that I can do, I got like a keyboard. I can connect to the computer through USB, and there's a software that you can buy that quite literally you see the notes coming down, and you can press the keys on the keyboard, sort of
Okay.
like Rock Band, and you're learning the piano because quite literally the notes are there on the screen, and you're pressing
It
the keys that you're supposed to press on the keyboard.
Yeah, it's more of a tutorial type or a training.
It's more sort of a tutorial type.
Okay,
I don't
that's cool
remember.
though.
Ah, man, it's been a while. A bit. I did it a few years ago. I haven't kind of gotten deep into the keyboard over a year. Kind of let it go to the wayside. But
Yeah, yeah,
I forgot the name of the software. I'll look it up and later share it with you.
yeah. Definitely, that sounds cool.
But kind of in the wrapping back the conversation, the when you were playing something like Rock Band, you were playing on the most difficult setting and you were learning the rhythm. It's sort of what some of these games are trying to establish that are done. When I say this game, I'm not only talking about Soulsborne. I'm talking in general. Like
Sure.
when a game got you on the harder difficulty and you get engaged with what's going on, like I believe that's the more true sense of a challenging experience that after you persevere getting punished over and over and over and you learning from your mistakes, and when you finally go over that hurdle of beating that boss or beating that song or beating that race or however gaming experience you're enjoying or genre, and you go over that hurdle, that payoff is what's really why even difficulty exists at the from the very beginning. If definitely you don't feel the satisfaction of getting that payoff, for some people it can get monotonous very fast. For some other people, that's what they need. Otherwise, they cannot get engaged with the experience. Otherwise, it's hard. Or as most people have already done, the bragging rights of, oh, I beat Halo 2 on the most difficult rank or whatsoever. So
Right.
whatever is the reason, we all enjoy games, and I gotta say, I've been enjoying my games differently now, and I don't know what this journey is gonna take me, but I guess I'm just left with one ending for Sekiro to unlocking all endings. So yeah, that can tell you of how much I've been
Oh,
enjoying
wow.
enjoying that experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I think it's awesome that it's opened up, little bit of a different gaming experience for you. The only thing that hopefully it doesn't do is take away some of the other fantastic gaming experiences that are out there as well, where it doesn't feel the same for you, so you get bored with it.
We'll see about that, I guess, when we engage with other titles.
Yeah.
And how about you?
From
The
what
difficulty
as far,
standpoint.
from games that I've been playing currently, or
No, I mean the topic as far as how you enjoy difficulty and what are your thoughts on the matter.
no, well, I think I just, to me, I don't want the game to be too difficult. I guess I personally prefer the game to be like a medium type difficulty. I like to be challenged, but I don't like to be punished, and I also don't like to just walk through the game. Although sometimes that is fun in and of itself. So I tend to gravitate towards the more medium, normal difficulty. If the game is a little bit harder, that's cool. If it's a little bit easier, that's also cool. So, but I don't feel the need or I don't feel like the reward of being able to go through and beat something that's at a higher difficulty. Even just recently, I replayed God of War 2018 in preparation for Ragnarok coming out in November. I think I beat one Valkyrie, and all the other Valkyrie fights I just was like, not right now, and just continued the rest of the game
Mm,
because I didn't feel like just getting punished and basically spending 5 hours trying to beat one Valkyrie. So it was just like, no, I'm good. Next, I'm just going to continue to move on, and I'm fine with that. Now, my first playthrough, I am more aggressive. I will try to get everything and try to beat everything that I could beat. But since it was a replay, I was good.
I'm glad to hear. I mean, it's the sort of thing that don't let yourself be brought down because other people enjoy something that you don't. Um,
Exactly.
if I would really love for you the same that it happened for me to be able to enjoy these games from a different viewpoint. But I definitely can see that if it's not for you, it's not for you. Don't press yourself hard for you. It's like
Yeah. Again, yeah, it might be something that eventually I'll click. I'll have to end up giving it a chance, but because of my previous experience, I won't. Like I didn't buy, Elden Ring when it came out. I don't buy. I didn't buy it now. I'm not planning on buying it. Now, if it comes on like a PS Plus, Game Pass or whatever, I think it's a PlayStation exclusive, so that's probably out. But or maybe a really low price, something like that, I might give it a shot, just to see. But I didn't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to feel like I bought the game and now I'm not going to play it because I'm not enjoying it, like I kind of did with Bloodborne. I was so excited to play it and I bought it on launch, and every day I came home from work and I would play it, and then every day I came home from work and I was like, do I have to play this? I bought it, so I better play it. And then I finally said, I don't want to play this game anymore.
understandable.
That's my thoughts, and I'm sticking to them, man.
No, I mean, and that's fair. No one can tell you otherwise. Unle-
Yeah, and again, that doesn't necessarily mean that things won't change in the future like they did for you, because it sounded like you had similar experiences.
yeah, and I really, I'm glad that I gave it a chance. But obviously, my circumstances are different. I guess that's definitely also a factor.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. So I mean, and also, from my understanding, Elden Ring is definitely quite a bit of a different experience than some of the other From Software games. Different as far as like the world and the environment and how it being a little bit more open. So it might be something I'll enjoy a little bit more, and then maybe something that will get me to go back and play, some of the other games I didn't enjoy as much and have a newfound respect for them.
I will be waiting when day comes.
Don't hold your breath.
Anything else that you want to bring to the conversation?
Well, I mean, we talked about Dragon Ball today. We talked about fighting games. We talked about Rock Band, music instruments, Bloodborne, From Software. You got to trash a couple of my ideas. It was a lot to take
Counter,
in.
counter.
Counter, lot to take in today. Lot to take in. No, I'm good. I'm good with the talk. So I'd like to hear what other people's ideas are, so that Alan can trash those as well.
I'm not.
Uh,
I'm not. I'm okay. Let's get. Oh wait. Let's get one clear. I'm the person that I like getting criticized, so I can improve, and also I criticize, so I can understand where the other person is coming from. Let's put
I
that.
love it.
Let's put it. Not that I'm trashing what you just said, but I'm establishing the parameters here.
I love it. I love it. No, I think no, it's great. I mean, in all honesty, that's what is needed to be able to come up with a good idea, because you might think your idea is 100% rock solid, and then you have somebody to come and point out the flaws in it, or what doesn't make as much sense, and then you can refine and make it an even better idea. So no, I appreciate that. I just like to joke around. So you know me, I don't take a whole lot seriously.
Well then, I hope to hear from everyone in any of our social media, either on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can leave your
You
comments.
too. Yeah, definitely. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you what, give us some ideas and some stuff that you might want to hear us talk about in the future as well. All right, everybody. You have yourself a good week. We'll catch up with you next time.
Later.